He's been a shapeshifter before, tonight's shapeshifter, but because he's shifting shape again, he needs to come back and explain himself. Mark Barnes, the executive chairman of the Purple Group and the incoming chief executive of the Post Office, not yet wearing a postman's cap.
Postman Pat, and his black and white cat.
He hasn't walked out yet.
Early in the morning, just as day is dawning, he picks up all the post bags in his van.
I mean, that's an idyllic view of being a postman, I suppose. And they used to call the job you're going to do the Postmaster General. Is that still a title?
It is, but I think we're going to go with CEO of the Post Office. Yeah.
It gives it a 21st century feel.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Although I love Postmaster General, I think it's a bit outdated. You know?
No, listen, you've been a shapeshifter before. You've told us your story before. So let's just get, for people who missed it, this is the condensed version of this poor little kid growing up in the dusty streets of Belfast and Mpumalanga. Yeah. Just the potted Mark Barnes history before we get on to what you're doing now.
Well, you know, I as you say, I grew up on a farm school, and from there was lucky enough to have some good teachers and get bursaries and things to go and study at university, and ended up studying actuarial science, which was terrible because it intersected with when we were practicing for bummies and things like that, because all of the lectures were actually actuaries. And then I got into the banking world and Standard Merchant Bank, and that's well known, and from there tried my hand at private equity and various other things, not all of them illustrious. Found myself involved in the really high tech side of trading markets and things, and it's taken me a while to learn that and understand it, and we're doing well at it now in Purple. And I was getting to a point, Bruce, where I was starting to think about relaxing. And
how old are you, if I may ask?
I'm 59, not 60, 59. Okay. And I was, I write for the Business Day, as you know, and I started getting involved in looking at SOEs and in particular the Post Office. And at some point in time, I read an article which said that their forward thoughts were about, shutting down 5,000 jobs and 650 points of representation. And it occurred to me that what that would do is just take an organization that's loss-making and dysfunctional and make it into a smaller loss-making, dysfunctional organization. And so I approached the government with some thoughts about thinking about the post office in a different way, thinking about it as a growth place, thinking about it as an expanding place, and starting to look at some of what's happening in the modern world. Last year, the biggest listing on the Tokyo Stock Exchange was its post office.
Yes, the Japanese post office listed. But post offices around the world are coming under pressure. Yeah. I mean, the Royal Mail in the United Kingdom did privatize, it listed. Yeah. But if you go into a British post office today, it's not the Postman Pat scenario. It sells stamps, and sure, it'll
the
do
mix
pensions.
has changed.
But it's becoming a retail service outlet.
It is.
It's a fundamentally different business.
Yeah, it's a fundamentally. I mean, we in South Africa still have in our post office something like 70% of our revenues are dependent on mail. That's not the world model. The world model is more like 30%. And post offices now offer financial services, offer access for logistics, e-commerce, all of those modern day business enterprises that require some distribution infrastructure. And the post office in South Africa has got the most clients of any business in this country. Most registered clients, of course. We all clients of the post office, corporate and individual. Okay.
But less and less so, because with the postal crisis, which has been exacerbated over the last 2 years, my bank statements are now emailed to me. My traffic fines are online. Everything.
Yeah, but you're still a registered client of ours. We know your address. We have to know your address. Okay, and so
how do you know that?
Well, because you're registered in some form and you have an address, and we have the addresses of the people.
You know where I live. How terrifying.
We know where you live. Pretty much,
Yeah.
But it's a question of, well, should we start treating you as a client?
That would be nice.
Okay, so if you did that, and if you look at some of the value propositions around the world, if you look at Facebook and WhatsApp and Twitter and all of these, and Alibaba and Amazon, their economic model, and Naspers or Tencent, their economic model and their valuation is predicated on the fact that they have massive client growth. Well, we start with that as a given. Okay, we have that. We have an extraordinary infrastructure. We have a bank in the middle of the post office.
Now, the bank the state has always wanted a state-owned bank, and has had a state-owned bank.
Yeah, it is got
in the
state.
form of the Post Bank.
Yeah.
And it has been the most underutilized asset.
I think they've been concerned, rightly perhaps, the Reserve Bank, about what they should allow the post office bank to do, and so it does nothing now, pretty much. And we're hoping that we can persuade the Reserve Bank and others that it has a really valid place in our community. For example, there's no good reason why we shouldn't be paying everyone's pensions out of a post office. You can walk to a post office pretty much wherever you live. There's no reason why we shouldn't be managing the social grant payment system out of the post office, and we pay extraordinary amounts of money to private enterprise to do that on our behalf. And it's us. It's the guy. We are us.
But that's the point. I mean, there are 19 million people in South Africa, 18 million people who receive some kind of social grant.
Yeah.
These things are being distributed by SASSA. It's a smart card system, massively controversial.
There's no reason why we can't do it in the banks.
Yeah, but why should it not?
Inside the post bank.
Why should it not be done that way?
Why can't you get your driver's license renewed? Why can't you go and pay your fines? Why can't you go and pay your municipal bills at the post office? All of those good things are right there at our doorstep. We don't have to reinvent them. What we have to do is do them efficiently. And so the challenge that the post office has had, because it has been running up losses and it has an absence of funding, is that in the supply chain that it is actually quite good at is clogged up with creditors that have not been kept up to date. And so things delay on their way because one hasn't paid the rent or and so on. And
you ran out of petrol at some point.
Yeah, but we also ran out of a good reason for Treasury to give us petrol. Okay, and so we must earn the right to capital. Okay, by what we're proposing, and we are not looking for any favors, as it were, from Treasury, although we'd like some help. What we're looking for is to present to them a business case which is compelling, which could raise capital anywhere. And let's start with raising that capital internally with Treasury. But I do see a world in time where the post office can fund itself independently, entirely independently. And you go back not too long ago to when South African post office bonds were an attractive capital instrument, worldwide interest in them. And we can see a time when, with a proper business model and some demonstrable outputs to that, we can get back to that world. Now, the challenge isn't all that exciting stuff, Bruce. That isn't the challenge. That to me is clear, and it was part of the strategy I presented to government, which probably influenced why I'm getting the job. The challenge is two things, access to appropriate capital, which I've talked about. But the other thing is there are a lot of people working at the post office.
Can I hit pause there? Because I want to come back on that particular point. Because I've been getting emails from people today, and they've got people questions. And people are, I think, sort of semi-excited, but a little bit nervous as well, a little bit apprehensive about what this guy from the private sector is coming in to do. He was in the banks, and we know what they like. So there'll be some apprehension.
Yeah.
But anybody who's been into a post office in the last while will know that there is a sense of doom and gloom in a post office. People in the post offices have been treated so badly by their own structures within the post office system. They've had so many different chief executives over the last couple of years. They've had so many different boards. It's been such a shambles that the joy of going to work has been sucked out of their daily existence. Mark Barnes' biggest, I hate the word, challenge is going to be to put a spring in the step of people at the post office. How is he going to do that? More in a moment.
The Money Show, Shapeshifters.
Day one at the office for the new chief executive of the post office, Mark Barnes, is
the 15th of January, which is 2 more sleeps.
That's Friday.
It's Friday.
Who starts working on Friday?
It's the middle of the month. They chose the date.
Okay.
So it's the middle of the month. And we were talking about the challenge revolving around people. It is ultimately about people there. And despondent people who, as you listed all of the things, had an absence of leadership, an absence of strategy, and it's
absence of hope.
And an absence of hope. And I think, and I can tell you now, Bruce, I've, in every engagement I've had so far, been welcomed with enthusiasm, because I think people have got to the point where they recognize that help would be a good thing. And I promise you, I'm coming to help. Okay. And, I just think that if we have a plan, if you start off with a plan which shows an outcome, people ultimately want to earn a living by their labors. Okay. People want economic dignity, which they get from a good day's work and get paid a good wage for that, and so on. And I think people are looking forward as much as I am to engaging in something which is real. But we first, we've got some catch up to do. We've got some backlog. We've got some systems and creditors and issues like that which have to be dealt with. But once we do that, once you can see an end game and you've got the tools to start it, people will get back to work, I promise you. And when they do, their friends will see it, and the thing will have an impetus back to where it belongs.
If you stumble across the Whitfield boys' Christmas presents from their auntie in Port Elizabeth, could you just push it through the system?
Well, it depends on are they any good. I mean,
I have no idea. That's why they're wrapped. Okay. They haven't made it through. But a lot of people have lost faith, as I have, in the safety of using the postal system. And that's one example. Stuff was posted in Port Elizabeth 6 weeks ago.
No, there are a couple of elements there. Safety might be an issue, and integrity of the system is an issue. But to be honest, one of the major issues is not that we can't do it. It's just that on the road from where you post it to where it's got to get, there are any number of interfaces, some of which we're not up to date with. No. Okay, and they've said, well, it's not going any further until you've sorted me out. And so we get a bit more capital, we sort them out, and then it moves to the next place, slowly but surely. Things like pilferage and all of that sort of thing, there are systematic ways to deal with that. But it starts with people believing, actually. You can film people, you can have systems to catch people. Those aren't anywhere nearly effective as if you motivate people.
Until one colleague says to another, no,
come on, stop it. But we've got a chance here. We can have a life here. I think it's possible to have those very same despondent people one day walking around proud to be working for the South African Post Office.
A manager emailed us, manages one of the post offices, one of your post offices. He says, we branch managers have to perform more than two duties. Which are your branch manager's duties? Teller duties. In most cases, all the duties associated with running of the branch and so-called single-handed branches, including mail processing. And to make matters worse, managers at mail delivery are earning far more than us, as they are not under TCTC, whatever that is, even though they never perform retail duties while we must perform. There's a great sense of in that of like, hold on a second, this is not a fair place to work.
I mean, I have detected that on more than one interface, and I think there are probably levels of unfairness, but you'll find that anywhere, that there are people that are working more than the people that aren't working. I hope in time, and I'm going to be forthright about this, I hope in time that we sift out those who want to work and are able to work and are willing to work from those who aren't. And I would like to see the one group stay and the other group go. And I actually can't do that from the top. They are going to do it as a peer group assessment. And I've engaged already with one of the unions, and I intend engaging with them all. And here it is, guys. We're going to tell the truth to each other all day. We've got so many marbles to play with. We all need to play with them. If we don't work together, if we can't construct a positive case, there'll be nothing left to fight about. Okay, the entrepreneurs that we've already fed, that the courier companies, the alternatives to the post office, which have emerged out of our inability to compete, must stop thriving. Okay, and we are going
You've got to threaten.
We're going to take back our lunch. That's what we're going to do. I've looked around at the competitive pricing of courier companies, for example. There is absolute space for us to compete if we could do it properly within huge margins that they have reaped at our expense.
And
we're back.
The thinking of people in the post office has also got to change. I mean, this particular guy says, we work under dirty offices because we don't have cleaners. And you go, well, yeah. So do flight centre staff, and you never see a dirty flight centre. The flight centre model is...
It's all the same thing. It's all attitudinal. It's all how you feel about your pride. And I can tell you, the first guy who picks up a lappy or a broom to clean their post office will get the next guy to do it. And I wouldn't mind if I was one of them. Okay, I'm happy to pick up a broom. Okay, and let's start sweeping together. And I mean it. We must come. And I can tell you, when I walk in, I've walked into a couple of random post offices wherever I've been on holiday and so on.
They don't know who you are yet.
They don't know who I am, and when I tell them who I am, they all want to say hello, and they all get a sort of positive I got only positive vibes coming from them. They were all like, okay, come on, are we going to get paper? Are we going to be able to? And I say, yes,
are we going to get paper?
Yeah, I mean, there's supplies there which they haven't got to do their jobs, okay? Are we going to, have enough stamps? Are we going to be able to do all of these kinds of things? And I say, if we pull together, we are. And they look at one another and they say, well, maybe we can. And that's a good start for me. That's enough for me.
Did you ever go to boarding school?
I was at boarding school my whole life.
I mean, did you ever have that feeling the night before you went to school where there's this empty feeling in the bottom of your stomach and your heart is beating a little bit tighter and your throat's a bit dry in your mouth?
For the first couple of years, and then for the last few years, I couldn't wait to get there.
Okay, so do you feel like you did in the first few years of boarding school now? Apprehensive a bit?
Yeah, I am apprehensive. I hope I've got it within me, and I hope that, and I'm going to take myself very seriously into exactly what I believe is right. And we've got experience, and I'm hoping to persuade others to come on this journey, because the outcome for the post office and for South Africa is fundamentally important.
You keep your Business Day column.
Yeah.
Because your Business Day column this week was just, I mean, they're always good. This week was particularly good. They were just like motivating almost yourself to go, either put up or shut up, South Africa.
Yeah, get over it. Sitting here whinging at each other, there are no prizes for that. You can criticize wherever you go, there'll be something to criticize. That doesn't take mettle. What takes mettle is to jump in and do something about it. And recognize that if we don't do that as a collective, there's no solution to South Africa that's going to come raining out of the sky. It's our solution that we've got to be all part of. And I fundamentally believe people want it. If you give people half a reason to get back on track for the Rainbow Nation, we'd all jump at it, man. It's not difficult to see that could happen. And if we demonstrate, if the post office and the post office of all the SOEs is the one closest to business, it's just about a business. It's right there. It's in the shopping centers. It's close to e-commerce, it's got a bank and all those kinds of things. If that case study proves its worth, I think it'll serve for a hopefully shining example of how government and business came together, and labor and unions, and rewrote some books about how we need to pull together, because that's what we really need to do.
No pressure, it's on your shoulders.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited about it. I want it, but I am not disrespectful for the amount of energy and hard work that we have to do.
No, but I think everybody wishes you well. There'll be one or two courier companies that hope you fail, but I think 99.99999% of us wish you absolutely all the very best.
Well,
and
thank you.
It's going to be a tough job, but I think you've got the energy for it. You've got the rumor for it.
Thank you.
Mark Barnes, the incoming Post Office, Postmaster General, South Africa's very own answer to Postman Pat. Do you have a black and white cat?
Not yet.
There we go. Maybe he'll get one.